very, very, very special cheer because this is like, from the yeshiva's perspective, our learning environment. This is anytime we introduce a new sefer, it's something that's going to exist forever, and other people can learn it and come by and learn it, and it's a thing, right? So, the last year. Okay, so first of all, before we go further, I wanted to acknowledge that we have Rabbi Zohar in the audience with us. Maybe you share some words, and he is one of the board members of the Chief Rabbinate of Africa under authority of Chief Rabbi Pinkas, as you guys all know. And he's actually the individual who introduced me to Rabbi Pinkas and Christina Kadisha in the Old City Yeshiva, and is very much a part of everything that goes on with the whole rabbinut. But he's also Haitian American. Grew a part of his life in Haiti, part of his life, most of his life in America. He's in America now. He's married. His wife's American. His children. The whole thing. They should be blessed and have success. So he's here, but he's also went to Chabad Yeshiva, right? So he's very knowledgeable about what we're going to talk about, and so it'll be great, if he feels comfortable at any point to interject and bring out some points. So I was telling you guys that, the main thing is like this: why is Chassidut important to learn? Why is the Tanya? Why is the Balatanya? Why are these things important to learn? Obviously, not exclusively. We learn everything, right? We're learning we're across the spectrum of knowledge, right? We believe in Jewish literature here. But the thing is that, right now in human history, we're in that transition moment where the body and body consciousness the value of it is starting to fade away, meaning that we're going into era of robotic technology, global outsourcing, and so the mechanism how man has been sustaining itself for hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years, has been on the frame of physical labor, right? And so the physical labor that we've been producing, which has created the society that we live in, right? Created the structures, everything. Even now, what is the issue, right? The issue now is male-female relationships in the West, right? Americans are not having children. That largely has to do with the fact that women are less concerned with being homemakers and more focused on, being corporate executives and entrepreneurs, which I'm not, saying good or bad, or I'm not making a critique on that, but I'm saying that's a byproduct of workforce, is a byproduct of technology, right? And so this is a byproduct of the non-Jewish world, and the non-Jewish world does not reject the concept of having a soul. So a feminine soul, a masculine soul, the soul having needs, all these things don't even exist. So that's why they could say, hey, if I look at life from an external level, a man and a woman could be the same thing. It's just a name. What's the big deal? I identify as a woman. What? I identify as a man. You know what I mean? I identify as you know what I mean. So why does it matter? Even people identifying as even animals. So why does it matter, right? Do I sound muffled now? Oh, hold on. Do I still sound muffled now? You guys, can you hear me better or no?
A little bit more.
Hold on. Is this better? Can you hear me better now? You guys good?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
100%
Chief
better.
Rabbi.
All right. What was it? Could you hear anything I said before?
Yes, we could hear you. It was just low. It's
Okay. All right. Fine. But it's better now. Obviously. Okay. Fine. All right. So yeah. So that's the dilemma, right? So the dilemma is saying that now we're in a reality where the body consciousness and the value of the human body and even the human intellect as it relates to regurgitating whatever we learned in school, these things don't matter as much anymore in terms of our ability to support ourselves for pranasa, for our living, for our sustainability. And so now we're being pushed as a human race into a higher consciousness which is the consciousness of our uniqueness. Because at the end of the day, the beauty of uniqueness is that it's something that we're all lacking. I'm lacking your uniqueness, you're lacking my uniqueness. This is why we have conversations, right? We see people, we walk around and we have conversations. Hey, how are you doing? What's your name? Where are you from? That's because we're all lacking something. When we learn about someone else and we learn about their life, it's a thing. We even tell other people about it. Yeah, I met this guy, from Ukraine, and he said this, and he said that, and he says this. This is a part of our human nature, is to be connected and to benefit from other souls, other neshamot, right? And so as we think about, like, what is a marketplace, right? What is a business? What is a marketplace? What is the concept of it? The concept of a marketplace is a fulfillment environment of needs and desires, right? I need this. I desire to have that. This is a marketplace, buying and selling, right? So that aspect of the marketplace is only a reflection of our consciousness, which is a reflection of our soul. So in the same way that we're looking for those contributions, we're looking to acquire the new iPhone, the new car, the new outfit, the new pair of shoes, our soul has that desire. And that's where the external desire comes from. But if we don't know that, we could spend our whole lives on the external desire, right? So with that being said, if the conversation now is learning about the soul, and the advantage for the Jew is to know about the soul, then we got to, like, really, sit back and say, you know what? If the rest of the world is going to be faced with the dilemma of, hey, if there's a soul, then I have needs. If my soul has needs, that means that because the soul is in my physical body, means it's different, or is a different expression from the other souls in other bodies, but we all come from the same source. So now I got to rethink society, right? I got to rethink, how I make my money. I got to rethink my motivations in life. I got to think about the environments that I'm in. I got to think about, what inspires me, what doesn't, all these different things, right? I got to think about them because I'm unique. Even though I could have siblings, my siblings don't have the same soul as me, right? They don't have the same soul as me. Their souls have different motivations, different desires. I have cousins with different souls, different desires. I have siblings. I have parents. I have neighbors. I have relatives. Everybody has their own uniqueness. Now, some people I am like-minded with, right? I am like-minded with it. I am like-minded with certain types of souls or certain types of people. But then when I really unpack it, it's really certain souls. So the fact that we're here learning right now, me at this time zone, you in this time zone, all these different people, it's an idea that there's something in common about our souls. And I would say it is because we have the souls of Israel, right? And so the souls of Israel crave Torah, they crave truth. They're not, they're not satiated by the desires of the non-Israel, right? The non-elevated souls. They're not inspired by that. Like, for me, honestly, where it's at now, for me, it's very difficult for me to even scroll through social media because everything it's just one lie after another, right? One lie after another. They have this guy, he has all this money, he has this big house, he has gold. That's a lie. There's no fulfillment there. Then they try to hit you with, then they're trying to hit you up with, for men, they throw out these, like, half naked women, right? And they try to say, oh, well, you know what? If you just were there, that you have fulfillment. No, that's a lie too, right? And then they show these politicians. Oh, wow, look how these people, they're on this TV station. Wow, wow. It's a lie too. There's no fulfillment in being the president of the United States. Now, you could do it. You could use it if a person wanted to, they could use presidential positions and secular influences to use it as a kiddush Hashem, to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to transform, this environment. I'm going to elevate it. I'm going to, take away ungodly ideas, that stop or prevent the Mashiach, from revealing itself. They could do whatever. But the point is saying that that's what it's there for. But in itself, there's no fulfillment. There's no fulfillment in making $1 billion. Now, maybe you could use that $1 billion or 10% of it or 20% of it to move away hunger and this and provide people with it. Okay, and you're doing a mitzvah. You're doing, loving my neighbor as I love myself, right? So from that perspective, you have those things, right? You have those things. You have all these different abilities to perceive what's happening in a way. And as we talked about before, right? There's two ways of perceiving reality. There's the Etz Chaim and the Etz Das. The Etzadas is I have a good day, I have a bad day, I made money, I didn't make money, I have this much money today, I have that much money, I feel great, I had a great workout, it wasn't that great. We have ups and downs. But the Etz Chaim is this idea of everything is from Hashem. Everything is correcting my neshama, everything is moving me closer to my total potential. Right? And I tell you guys stories all the time about heartbreaks, disappointments I had in my life, and how they were always precursors to a greater reality, right? And so, and so, it's funny. Yehoshaphat just called me. It's funny. Zechariah, Yehoshaphat, like all these guys, and everyone's just like on fire right now. You know what I mean? And anyways, we're figuring out. So hopefully you guys can hear me because someone was just calling me on my other line, but I'm going to get ready to go back to the page. But this is the point. This is what we're getting to. We're getting to this place where we understand that everything that happened is for the neshama. Everything is for the correction of neshama. And our only problem in life is that we believed in the Eitz Das, which says, oh, well, this is a good thing that happened. This is the bad thing that happened. Because we were in the external reality consciousness. Right? The external reality consciousness. The external reality consciousness says like, oh, it hurts. Therefore, it's bad. It feels good. Is that James Brown? Shout out to James Brown. May his neshama have a higher aliyah in Shemayim. James Brown, we're saying his name in the shir. I feel good. Right? And so we have that, right? And then we say, oh, because I feel good, it must be good. That's the Eitz Das. And that destroys entire lifetimes. A person who believes that their whole entire lifetime, you could almost say it was like, what was it worth? No, it's a chaim. It's a tree of life, meaning that everything is happening from a place of love. This disappointment, that's happening. This is happening. Oh my God, Hashem, I get, sometimes I get mad at Hashem, based off of things I'm dealing with in my life. I'm like, I start yelling, Hashem, what do you want? You want to take me out? Okay, here, I lay out on the ground. I'm finished. You got it. You got it. What else do you want me to go through? How much more you want me to go through? Right? How much suffering? Okay, you did this. You gave me my code, patch. How much do you want? You want to take me out? Go ahead, take me out. I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to be your servant. But this is what I need in my life. I need this. I need that. I need these things. Come on, you said I need these things. If I lived by the Goyim, I wouldn't be thinking about this. I wouldn't be talking to you. I'm living by you, Hashem. So show me how do I get this and this. Provide it for me. I accept your Nisurin. I accept your Makot. I accept it. Right? I accept it. So what's next? But that point is the saying you can only say that even when Hashem is giving you good, and you're having a great day, and you say, Hashem, you know what? This is great, and I felt pleasure, but please take me higher. Don't say, wow, today was a great day. No, today was good. Please, Hashem, take me higher. Take me higher. So with all this being said, the mastery of the situation, right? The mastery of the situation is, hold on, let me see if we can get some of these guys in the share. Hold on one second. Sometimes the thing I realize now, when people call me, maybe they want to be in the share. You know what I mean? Hold on, just let me send to two people. Hold on. Share, hold on. Sure. Sure. Hold on. On now. All right, so who knows? We may have more. We may have more. We're not just Rabbi Zohar. We have other celebrities coming in. Who knows? All right. So the point is like this. Yes. So that's what we're dealing with, right? That's what we're dealing with, and that's our challenge. Our challenge is when we have $5 in the pocket, we're like, if I had $5.03, it wouldn't be perfect for my tikkun for today, for this particular light today. Tomorrow I may need, the wire deposits go through, whatever. I got X amount of money in my bank. Okay, fine. But right now, the amount of money I have today is perfect. It's perfect, right? And being in that consciousness is where we're at. All right. So let's learn a little about Tanya. We're going to open up the sefer, and this is a massive, massive sefer because I mean, a lot of people have different opinions about Chabad and this, all these different things, But the thing is like this, and we're going to skip the introduction. The thing is like this: when the Alter Rebbe brought down the Tanya, it was a huge, huge, massive revelation. And the reason why is because of many of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and through the Maggid Dov Ber, a lot of these teachings were not as accessible, right, as they were during the times of the Baal Tanya. Meaning that number one, the Baal Tanya, drew from Maggid Dov Ber, but then he also drew because there's a whole story. There's a sefer about this actually, and it's written by Ari Kaplan, and it's called Hasidic Masters. And so he writes about the whole history of Chassidut with Baal Shem Tov and the whole process, and he goes through all the different Rabbanim. It's a great book. I used to give classes on this book. It's a great book. And one of the things he talks about is the concept of with the Baal Tanya when Alter Rebbe, when he wrote the Tanya, and this is just from his perspective. Someone who's Chabad would say maybe totally different. Okay, so I'm not saying that this is the Chabad Shita on the Baal Tanya, but I'm saying this is what someone who's on the outside, right? This is how they analyze it, and this is Joseph. This is Ari Kaplan, who wrote Kabbalistic Meditations, the whole thing. So he says like this, that when the Baal Tanya wrote the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya, he wrote it. There was a lot of pushback, by Menachem Mendel. There's other people that were there at that time, not the Menachem Mendel, But I'm saying during that time when they were also students of the Maggid Dov Ber, right? And so the Maggid Dov Ber, he came and he revealed them a tremendous Torah, very much inspired by Yaakov Yosef, right? Who was the person who wrote down everything who was the person who wrote down everything for the Baal Shem Tov. And so he had that Masura, right? And so the thing is that he also brought in a lot of the teachings of the Ari and other places, right? And he took other places from the Zohar, right? And so he took those teachings from the Maggid Dov Ber and other teachings. I wish I had it in front of me so I could read you exactly his words. And so he brought those together in his own particular, inspiration, right? And this is what the Tanya was written on this, right? And so that's one perspective, okay? Like Rabbi Zohar, he has a much more Chabad perspective in terms of knowing how they say it. I'm not saying it's Chabad, I'm just saying how they say it. So I will just say this. So he says, Tanaya, he says, Vesof Perek. Okay, so he's saying it's taught, in Masechet Nida, it says, Mas V'im Oto. He says, Tihi Sadiq Ve'al Tihi Rasa. Afilu kol ha'olam kulo omrim lach sadiq ata haya be'enecha it says it's karsa. So some of this may be familiar to some of you guys because for some people in listening or even here, a lot of times when I first start working with someone and teaching them, I teach them a lot of the most classic Sfarim, right? And the reason why is because the only way I could teach someone is if we have a common language, right? So I have to create language. So a lot of the Sephardim that we've learned over the last year, some people longer, has been able to create a language that we could talk outside, meaning that I could talk, like earlier today, we had a class on economics and the future of the economy, but we have so much common language, you can understand what I'm saying, right? So here, we start with this idea of the same way that I started with you guys. I didn't know this is how Tanya starts, by the way. But the same way I started with you guys, you remember the first Gemara I taught you guys was Masecta Nida, when it talks about the idea of us coming and making an oath, right? So let's just look really quickly at it, really quick. Just look at it really quickly in English. So he says, what, you remember this? He says, what is the oath that the angel administers to the fetus? So before we're born, before we come out of our mother's womb, we take an oath. He says, be righteous and do not be wicked. And even if the entire world says to you, you are righteous, consider yourself wicked, know that the Holy One, blessed be He, is pure, and His minister and his angels are pure, and the soul that He gave you is pure. And if you preserve it in the state of purity, all is well. But if you do not keep it pure, I should send an angel and take it away from you. Okay. So this, if you guys remember that, this is the first thing we learned. So he says, so be righteous, not be wicked, and even if the whole world tells you that you are that you are right, that even if the whole world tells you that you are righteous in your own eyes, regard yourself. Okay, so he's saying different here, actually. It's interesting. So he's saying a little bit different. So he says here, he's saying different than. Go ahead. Someone say something?
No, I was gonna say, Rabbeinu, no, you're correct about what you were saying before.
About what part?
No, even though the whole world sees you as tell you righteous, you have to look at yourself, ke rasha, like a rasha. Not
Mm,
rasha, but like a rasha.
mm,
Not totally rasha, like a rasha. And further down, you're gonna see this is where you introduce the aspect of Benoni.
exactly. And Rabbi Zohar, please, you've learned this safer like a good portion of your life. So I'm just saying it out loud, but please, like I mean, you're chief rabbi yourself, and please, it'd be a blessing for the students to hear your perspective. So he's saying like this. So yeah, so he's saying different. He's saying different, as Rabbi Zohar just pointed out. He's saying different than how the Gemara is saying it, right? The Gemara is saying it that if the world regards you as wicked, regard yourself as righteous, right? That's what they're saying. Like you got people protesting for Israel right now, and they're saying you guys are killers, blah blah blah. You should still see yourself as a righteous Jew. That's that, or as a Jew, and from that standpoint, you have a pure neshama, right? Even if you don't, So the point is saying, so that's that. But the Balatanya is saying it different, like Zohar is saying it. Be righteous. And be righteous and not be wicked. And even if the whole world tells you that you're righteous in your own eyes, regard yourself as if you were wicked. Ve sari kele havin. He says, and it's required to understood, for it contradicts the Mishnah Dakdum. So he's saying this. It says differently. So he's bringing the Alter Rebbe is bringing the Pirkei Avot chapter 2, and it says, and do not be wicked in your own omission. Okay, so Rabbi Zohar, if you could jump in on that. So what I'm hearing from here, he's saying he's saying that guard your. He said he's saying on one point he's understanding the Gemara to say like, hey, you know what? Regard yourself as even if the world says you're righteous, say you're wicked, right? That's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says if the world sees you as wicked, see yourself as righteous. But he's saying in a way the opposite, but really the same thing. But now he's saying it requires to be understood because it seems to contradict Pirkei Avot, which says, and not be wicked in your own omission, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
you hear what I'm saying? So because he's saying in the second part, he's saying that, oh, well, don't, he's saying don't see yourself. He says, see yourself as wicked if they see you righteous. But here the Pirkei Avot says, do not see yourself as wicked in your own omission.
Right, correct. This is this is also the next question he's going to ask. He said, okay, if you see yourself like a Rasha, he said, don't see yourself as righteous. See yourself ke Rasha. Not a Rasha, but like as if you were a Rasha. As if. As if doesn't mean you are literally a Rasha. You see the difference? See yourself as if you were a Rasha. You know?
So you
So
speak.
this is not. Mhm.
No, I was going to say you're saying he's speaking in the frame of humility.
Yes, this is that's the introduction of humility.
Okay.
And you see the next thing he's gonna say, hey, if you take yourself as a Rasha, you will become depressed. So what's the point? And go ahead, Rabbit.
So it says Vegam, and thank you, Rabbi. Keep continue on, please. We're going to keep going, but please jump in every section. Vegam im heyeye be'enav karaas yeir. Does it say it says karasa? Sorry, karasa, right? Karasa yair livevo ve'yehiye asev. Asev. He says, furthermore, if a person considers himself to be wicked, he will grieve at the heart and be depressed. And he will not be able to serve God with happiness, joyfulness, and with a contented with a content heart. So he's saying, if you see yourself as a wicked person, if you see yourself as not good, right? So he's trying to clarify. All right, so he says in a point, he says, if the world sees you as righteous, see yourself as wicked. But the Gemara says, if the world sees you as wicked, see yourself as righteous. So I think maybe we can learn out, and Rav Zoga, jump in if he wants. On this point, maybe we can learn out from here is saying that what he's saying is, he's saying like, okay, yes, if the world sees you as wicked, see yourself as righteous, but the world sees yourself as righteous, see yourself as wicked. Meaning, the world shouldn't dictate how you perceive yourself, right? The world shouldn't say that, and that's why he's bringing this thing he's bringing the verse from Pirkei Avot. He's saying, don't see yourself as wicked. Don't walk around seeing yourself as wicked. So how do we reconcile? He's saying he reconciles it by saying that, hey, you know what? If you see yourself as wicked, because he wants us to understand what he's saying. If you see yourself as wicked, then you're going to become depressed, and it's going to be very hard for you to wake up in the morning and rap tefillin or read the Torah or the early morning brakah and say, yes, I have a new life and it's a new beginning, and who knows what could happen to it. You're not going to be able to see that because you're going to see yourself as inherently bad. He says, while if he's not perturbed by this self-appraisal, he may be led him to irreverence. So, a person it could lead a person to say, hey, I'm not righteous. I'm not a part of the holy people of the Torah. So what does it matter that I do? So I just should follow, whatever my lustful desire is. Rabbi Zohar, you got something on this?
No, continue. I'm listening.
Okay. He says, Kanaim ki hine matsinu begamar. Hold on one second. Sorry, this is just coming in. Oh, wow, it's crazy. All right, great. Okay, so great. Shalom, Rav Zakari. So, Rav Zakari. So, Zohar is in. We're just going back and forth. We're going on this Tanya, and we're bringing it down. So, if you got anything you want to add to any of these points, it's that type of share. Okay. Okay, so where we're at right now is what we're saying basically, right? Just to recap really quickly. What we're saying is that robot technology, automation, everything that's happening right now is a byproduct of Hashem wanting us to move out of body consciousness into soul consciousness, right? And the soul consciousness is basically saying that all the labor, all the society that was built before, that was built from people creating tools out of stones and out of bronze and out of iron and people being weavers and sewers and then eventually having cotton gins and all this new technology, that what we're saying now is like, hey, you know what? The world that's going forward, it's not about being religious. This ain't about religion no more. This is about soul technology. technology for the soul, because all I have is what I have to contribute to the world is my soul's uniqueness. That's it. My soul's experiences, my soul wisdom that's been acquired for many lifetimes, wisdom that is unique for me, right? And so when we're in this dynamic of understanding that our advantage is accept that our soul has needs and our soul receives light, needs light, and we need technology to receive that light. Now, hey, if other people got other forms of technology, let's talk about it. But for us, we have 613 mitzvahs, and we have Musar, and we have we have Shabbat. All these things follow within the mitzvot. But the point is saying we have that component, right? And so what we're doing is that we're saying like we got to gear our attention to the learning of the aspects of the soul and how the soul's functions. So one of the tools we're using, because we're using a lot of tools, we're learning different Musar Safarim, we're using, Rabbi Sachs, all types of people we're bringing to come to this conclusion of what our ultimate job is. And this is the thing. On Pesach, we're saying that everyone, like a cell phone, received a download. The Omer is there for us to reveal that download that we have for ourselves. And so for me, one of the downloads that I received on Pesach that I was able to understand weeks later was the fact that part of my personal mission is bringing this concept of the soul, not exclusively, because everyone else is doing it too in their own way, but bringing the fact that we have a soul and our soul has needs, and presenting the fact that we have technology through Judaism, through the sages, through the Torah, on how to deal with the soul. Now, if other people have a different worldview, right? In the Khazari, he talks a lot about this. We learned the Khazari, we learned Rabbi Ashlag, we learned a lot of different sages. We learned a lot of different sages that, speak about this concept of the soul, right? And the role of the soul. So over here by us, what we're saying is that by the soul consciousness, this is our advantage as being Israelites, as being Jews, is the fact that we have a soul and our soul receives light, and from there we're energized. It's not through the body. So with that being said, I know we just went through a whole monologue again, but we're in the frame of the Tanya, right? And so the Tanya starts with the Bala Tanya starts with the concept of the Masechet Nida that speaks about how every person comes into this world when we're born out of our mother's womb. Like one day, all of us, Zohar has had children. There's other people in this class right now who have over 10 children. All these types of things are going on. So all of us who haven't had children, we should know this experience. But it says when the child is born, before it comes out of the mother's womb, the child has to take an oath. And the oath is based off of it basically being proud to be a Jew, right? If the world says that I'm wicked, I got to say I'm righteous. But the Bala Tanya, the way the Bala Tanya understands it, and Rabbi Zohar clarified it for us, is that the Bala Tanya says, and keep in mind, Zohar and Rabbi Zakaria are two people that I learned in yeshiva with, and have known them for a long time. I know Zohar longer, I think a couple years longer than I know Zakaria, but so both these guys are very learned guys, and from an institutional standpoint. So, and I think Zakaria is working. He's becoming a rabbi soon. So the point is just saying like this: is to say that so it starts off with this idea of us making an oath, right? Us making an oath, coming into this world and making an oath. And what we're saying is that the Bala Tanya comes and says the opposite in a way, but it's the same thing. He's saying if the world says you're righteous, you got to say you're wicked. Meaning that don't let the world dictate who you are, right? Your relationship in the world is based off your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's who you are, right? And so where we're at now, we're in the fourth line, and what he says is this: Haf nanaim ki hine matzinu bigamara hey, and so he says like this. However, the matter will be discussed after this preliminary discussion. So we're just starting off the discussion. He says, we find that the Gemara has 5 distinct types of righteous men who prosper, a righteous man who suffers. Okay, so there's 5 types of righteous men. one righteous man who prospers, one who suffers, a wicked man who prospers, and a wicked man who suffers, and a Benoni. So this is an interesting point. And the people who went to Or Sameach, like Rabbi Zechariah, he knows Rabbi Breitowitz. So I remember one Rosh Hashanah, we were there at a meal, and Rabbi Breitowitz was our host, and so we were talking about this concept of Benoni versus a Tzaddik. What is the difference between a Benoni and a Tzaddik? What is a Benoni? So a Benoni is a person. First of all, you have a wicked person, right? A wicked person, a person who denies God, denies the Torah, lives in body consciousness completely. A Benoni is a level higher, a much higher level, and most people are at this level, which is the context of a person who has a strong Yetzer Tov, which is a good inclination, and all Yetzer Hara. He has both aspects, right? And I want Rabbi Zohar to maybe add on to that if he can. So he has both aspects. And then you have a higher level, which is a tzaddik, right? Which is a person who does all the mitzvahs. And I don't know if he discussed this here in the Sefer, but the Ramchal, who I'm learning with one of the Talmidim in this group, we're learning the Ramchal path of the just with other people. But he goes to a level and says there's a level of chassid, right? So a level of wicked is a person who denies God. A Benoni is a person who does good things, but he struggles. A person who's tzaddik does everything the right way, and a person who's a chassid, does everything the right way, but he takes extra precaution. He's very humordic. He doesn't want to be around. He's like a mikubal, like Chief Rabbi Pinchas. He's in that type of a frame where he doesn't even get close to certain things, right? So he's saying here that he's talking about the Benoni. Rab Zohar, could you maybe give some insight on the Benoni idea?
Yes, the Benoni is like this. As you go further, it's going to explain to you. Yafal Papa is talking to you. As you go further, it's going to explain to you a person. The concept of Benoni is like this. Imagine a person, which is like a little town, a city. And then there's two kings that's trying to fight to win over the city, that city. So that's the concept of the Benoni. He has both the good side and the bad side. Just like the tzaddik, there's two types of tzaddik. There's tzaddik viralo, which means the concept of chicken soup, right? Imagine you're making a chicken soup, and then there's a drop of milk that dropped in there. That's a tzaddik viralo. That means that the soup, the milk is like so little in the soup that it to the point it nullified. You don't even feel the concept of the soup in there. That's a tzaddik viralo. The tzaddik, the complete tzaddik, a tzaddik gamu means complete, is a tzaddik that, for example, the concept of the chicken soup, he has no ulterior, he has no extra influences outside of it. He's just complete. Like David Amelech, who did all his tikkunim, then he become complete. He erased all his sin. So Benoni is like he's there, but he's fighting every day. Every day. Today he could be the greatest Baal Torah, but 5 minutes later he goes skim someone in business. It's like that's the idea of Yitzhara, Yitzetov fighting each other.
Exactly. And I think for some other students in class, we talked about this from the standpoint, which is also Chabad language, which is the idea of the animal soul and the godly soul, right? And so there's times where the person who's a Benoni has a godly soul. So like Chief Rabbi Zohar is saying that, hey, you know what? You could do the biggest light, and then some temptation comes in, and then the animal soul kicks in, and then you do something you regret, something you got to do tshuva on, right? So from that perspective, like that's the frame of what he's talking about in this context. So there's different levels of different souls, and so anyway, so he brings a Gemara. And that's part of this shir too, is also go in depth. So it says be kavesh lehodiyot ledarav shela hakadosh baruch hu ve'natan lo shena amar. So it says he's bringing a verse. He says the whole Hodi ania na ad devarachechecha. So he says, lastly, Moshe requests. So this is a Gemara in Brachot that is connected to what he's saying. So maybe he gives us insight, this, I don't know, but we got to do it. He says, lastly, Moshe requests that the ways in which God conducted the world be revealed to him. And he granted it to him as he stated. So Moshe requested to Hashem. This is a Gemara in Brachot. So in this Brachot, he says Hashem says, Moshe wants to know Hashem. He says, show me your ways and I will know you, right? It says this in Exodus. He says, and Moses said this before God, the master of the universe. Why is it that the righteous prosper and the righteous suffer? Why is it that righteous prosper, the righteous suffer? The righteous and the wicked prosper and the wicked suffer. So he's asking this question, like he's asking this question on reality. So you have righteous people that suffer, righteous people who prosper. Why is it righteous, wicked people that suffer and wicked people that suffer, right? He's going off of this idea of different distinctions of righteousness. God says to him, he says, Moshe, the righteous person who prospers is a righteous person, the son of a righteous person, who is rewarded for the actions of his ancestors. So he says the guy who's righteous and he wins is this guy. He's not winning on his marriage. He's winning on his dad's marriage, or his grandparents, or his grandparents' marriage. The righteous person who suffers is righteous, the son of a wicked person. So if your dad wasn't, or your dad, grandfather, maybe you didn't come from such a righteous lineage, but nevertheless you're righteous. He says, who is punished for the transgressions of his ancestors? He says, the wicked person who prospers is a wicked person, but the son of a righteous. And he says, and who is rewarded for the actions of his ancestors? But the wicked person who suffers is wicked person and the son of a wicked person, who is punished for the transgressions of ancestors. So anyway, so this is how we understand his parts, right? So he says, Umeforesh su. He says, Bigumara Sadiq Vetov Lo Sadiq Gamor. He says, Sadiq Vera Lo Sadiq She'eno Gamor. So he says, and there's an explanation that the righteous man who prospers is a perfect tzaddik, right? So he's going off of the Gemara. You see how he's building everything from the Gemara. He's a perfect tzaddik. And the righteous who suffer is an imperfect tzaddik. What's this? The Ra'al Ma'amim. He says in the segue, hold on. I just want to see what it says. It says, no, not Russian. Anyway, so he's saying in this sefer, he says in this commentary on the Parsha Mishpatim, he says it explains that the righteous man who suffers is one whose evil nature is subservient to his good nature, right? So if you're righteous, right, say me, Zohar, Zakaria, Otina, whoever, Adrian, everybody, right? Everybody who so say we're righteous, right? So he says the righteous man who suffers is one whose evil nature is subservient to his good nature, and so on. In the Gemara it says in Brachot, so we just learned that Brachot. He says it's stated that the righteous are judged by their good nature, and the wicked are judged by their evil nature, while the intermediate are judged by both. This is the Benoni. He says, and also, the Rabbah declares, for example, I am a Benoni. Says Abba. He says Abaya. Wow. Abaya says he's a Benoni. You don't even understand what that is. Abaya is like one of the great Amoraim. Like he's unbelievable. Abaya, like Rav and Abaya, like these are. He's saying he's a Benoni. So where am I at? So Abaya says to him, Abaya says, I am a Benoni. For example, I'm a Benoni. Abaya says to him, Master, you do not make it possible for anyone to live, and so on. Okay, so very good. So I'm not the only one having a heart attack on this. So Abaya says he's a Benoni. So Abaya is a humongous person. So if he's saying he's a Benoni, they're asking a question. They're asking this question. His students asked the question. They said, what do you mean? Master, you made it impossible for me to live. I just felt the same way. I was like, I'm finished. Abaya is a Benoni? Who am I? I thought I was maybe close. Like, I thought I was becoming a Tzaddik. So he says, Ule Havim kol ze ba'ar hativ. He says, Vegam le Havim. So he says, He says, Ma she'amru. So he says, to understand all the what was said clearly, and its explanation is needed, as also to the understanding of what Job said. It says in Baba Batra, he says, the master in the universe, you have created righteous men, and you have created wicked men. For is it not preordained whether a man will be wicked or righteous? So he's saying, so there's kashyot. So he's saying like this: Abaya comes as a huge person and says, I'm a Benoni, right? Then he goes further, right? And he says that the Gemara says, he talks about a person they comment on the fact that Hashem, you create who's righteous and wicked. Right? You do this. For is it not preordained whether man will be wicked or righteous? Vegam elechavim mahut. He says, so he says, it is necessary to understand that the essential nature of the rank of the Benoni surely cannot mean that one whose deeds are half righteous and half sinful. For if this were so, how could Rabbah err and classify himself as a Benoni? So he's saying the question, he says, if I'm thinking about Benoni the way we were just talking about it, right? We said, hey, a person has an animal soul, they have a godly soul. If it was that simple, there's no way that Abaya could say I'm a Benoni. It's no way. He says, for it is known that he never ceases studying the Torah. He never stopped the Torah. So how could he say he's a Benoni? So much that the angel of death could not overpower him. The angel of death couldn't even affect Abaya. So what does it mean? What does it mean that he was a Benoni then? How then could he err to the half of his deeds sinful and God forbid? Hear the question? So what he's doing is he's clarifying this concept of a Benoni. This idea of, okay, hey, you know what? Oh, a Benoni is a person who's chetzi, right? He's half and half. He does good things and bad days. He says, ve'o she'arei be'isha'a. He says, she'osek ma'avonot nikara. So he says that furthermore, at what stage can a person consider himself a Benoni? If when a man commits a sin, he is deemed completely wicked. But when he repents afterwards, he's deemed completely righteous. So what's the Benoni part? Half and half. Is there a half and half? Because when I commit a sin, I'm in the frame of wickedness. But when I do tshuva, I'm right 100%, the highest level. Even he who violates a minor prohibition of the rabbis is called wicked, as it states in Yavama, right? So even the lower sin, like something that's like a Itzar Rabbanim, right? Something that's not even derisa, like something, whatever. Ve'afilu ma sheish beyado lemachot. Sorry, limachot ve'lo michanikara rasa. So he says, moreover, when he has the opportunity to forewarn others against sinning, he does not do so. He does not do so. It is called wicked. V'kol shekin v'kal v'chomer. So he says, in all the more so if he neglects any positive law, which is one of the 248, right? He says, which he is able to fulfill, for instance. However, is able to study the Torah and does not. Okay, so let's understand what he's saying. All the more so if he neglects any positive mitzvah, which he's able to fulfill. So if you're saying that a person is wicked, even if he gets Itzar Rabbanim, right? He over-transgressed one of the commandments of the Rabbanim. He says, which is able to fulfill, for instance, that he's able to, for instance, if he's able to study Torah and he doesn't, right? So what happens? He says, if he's able to study Torah and he doesn't, regardless of whom our sages have quoted, because he despises the word of the Creator, that the soul shall be cut off. So he's going hard right here. He's saying, if you have the chance to study Torah and you cannot, you're out. You're cut off. He said, it is thus plain that such a person is called wicked, more than he who violates a prohibition of the rabbis. Wow. So a person who violates a prohibition of rabbis, maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know, maybe he kind of understood, okay, that's bad. But the person who knows of a particular mitzvah and he chooses not to do it because he just doesn't care, it is thus plain that such a person is called a wicked, a rasha. And he who violates a prohibition of the rabbis. Ve'im ken al karachach, have nonim bo afilu avon. So he says, and if this is so, we must conclude that a Benoni is not guilty even of the sin of neglecting of the Torah. Hence Rabbah would have mistaken him for a Benoni. Rabbi Zohar, you want to jump in on any of this? Because we're just flying through this.
No, I'm listening. Right, it's great. It's amazing.
Okay, good enough. Just if any corrections you need. Zakari, you got anything you want to jump in on this stuff? I don't know, maybe he's not there. I can't see. Anyways, so it says Uma Shikiti Zohar. Okay, so he brings the Zohar. So as far he brings it up for it says, as far as is written in the Zohar, he whose sins are few is classed as a righteous man who suffers. He says this is a query of Ram Hamina to Eliyahu. But according to Eliyahu's answer, the explanation of a righteous man who suffers is stated in what we just already read earlier, which is given above, and that the Torah has 70 faces. So he's bringing, so Elder Rebbe is bringing a note of the Zohar. So he says, Veham de amara nam be alama de machatza ala mechatza mikare benonim. So he says, and as for the general saying that one whose deeds and misdeeds are equal balance are called benoni, while he whose virtues outweighs his sins is called a tzaddik. All right, so there's a general understanding that a person who's a benoni has as many sins as he has as many, of good deeds, mitzvot. Here, he's saying a tzaddik is a person whose mitzvot outweighs their sins. This is only figuratively used. This is a figurative term. It's not definite. He says a figurative term in regards to the punishment, because he is the judge. Because he is judged according to the majority, the acts. So he's using this as he's saying the way that he's measuring this understanding is from the standpoint of the court system. That a person is in the heavenly courts is usually judged based off of the majority, whether they have good deeds or bad deeds. Right? We talked about this. On a yard site, a person stands in front of Hashem and he's judged on his good versus bad. And then that's why we do additional mitzvah to add to that person's trial, and we give them additional good witnesses. He says, because he is judged according to the majority of his acts, he is deemed righteous in this verdict. Since he is acquitted in law, but concerning the true definition and quality of distinct levels in rank, righteousness and intermediate, our sages have remarked that the righteous are motivated solely by the good nature, as it's written, and my heart is void within me. That is void of an evil nature, because David had slain it through fasting. But whoever is not obtained this degree, even though his virtues exceed his sins, cannot Allah be reckoned as ascended to the ranks of righteous. He's saying he's creating a mechitza. He's saying like, hey, you know what? You could do it like this. You can understand it like this, but it's not like as clear as it may be worded. It doesn't mean because you have more sins because you have more mitzvahs and sins that you're automatically righteous, right? It just means that in a certain context, a person could be understood that way. Ve'lakeina amru, he says, ha boteinu lezikaronama livracha. Me be me the rush. Okay, so he says it, but he says this is why our sages declared in the midrash that the Holy One, blessed be He, saw the righteous were few, so He planted them in every generation. As it is written, the Siddiq is the foundation of the world. Av be'ur hanaim ala pi ma shekatav be'rabi chaim. So he says, in explanation of the question raised above, is it to be found in the light of what Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote in Shar HaKadusha? And by the way, Rabbi Zohar is a master on Shar HaKadusha. This is one of his main sefers that he teaches. If anybody wants to learn that in depth, Rabbi Zohar is a person, and he will give you shir. And so he says, and in the Etz Chaim, he says, in every Jew, whether righteous or wicked, are two souls, as it is written, the Nashamot souls, which I have made, alluding to the two souls. One is the soul which originates from the Klipa, the Sitra Akra, right? This is the animal soul, which is clothed in the blood of a human being, living, giving life to the body. He says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. From this stems the evil characteristics deriving from the four evil elements which are contained in it. These are anger, pride, which emanate from the elements of fire, the nature of which is rise upward. The appetite for pleasures from the element of water, the water makes to grow all kinds of enjoyment. And frivolity and scoffing, like silliness and small-mindedness and eagerness and idle talk from the element of the air, and sloth and melancholy from the element of the earth. Vegan midod tovot. So he says, and from this stems also the good characteristics. That's why we spend so much time in the yeshiva on character traits, right? We learn Chav HaYashar, we learn, Path of the Just, we learn Rabbeinu Yonah, we learn everybody, we learn all of the master Baal Musar, all the leaders of the Baal Musar, we learn these midot because he says vegan midot. He says, and from the character, from this soul stems all the good characteristics which are found in the imminent nature of all Israel, which is mercy and benevolence. Ki be Israel nefesh zod de kilifa. So he says, and in the case of Israel, this soul of the klipa, de klipa. So he says in the soul of the klipa, which is from the klipa noga, which contains good and it originates in the esoteric, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right? This is where the klipa noga come from. Good and evil. We just talked about this before we started. Right? We don't want to be in a world of good and bad. We want to be in a world of everything that we experience is from Hashem and is strengthening our soul and giving us a more exalted place in the world to come. Ma she'ein kina nafshot o umidot. Yes, it's umot. Umot. Ha'olam. So he says, in this is the end of this chapter, we're in here. So he says, in the soul of the nation of the world, however, emanates from the other, unclean klipo, which contain no good whatsoever, is written in the Etz Chaim. And it is all the good that the nation has done from selfish motivations. So the Gemara comments on the verse. The kindness of the nations is sin. That all of the charity and kindness done by the nation of the world is only for their self-glorification, and so on. So anyway, so this, wow. We finished the whole chapter in the Tanya. Wow. Right? Jump in, Zara. Go, please jump in.
There's two things, like for example, I'd like to put a light on. If the Tana said, I'm a Benjamin. Sorry, guys, I have three kids. There's a lot of noise in the background. If the Tana said, I'm just a Benjamin, what is he not saying to you? That means, if he says he's a Benjamin, that means the rest of you are what? Rasha. That's why, and as you go further, you're gonna see there's two types of Rasha. Just like there's two types of Tzaddik, there's two types of Rasha. There's a Rasha, There's a Racha Innovator, and there's a Racha Gamo, a complete Racha. Now, let's go further down the line. When you see he talks about the Klipat Noga, for example, we understand that Klipat Noga is half, half half. That's why the sword of Gili come from the Klipat Noga, the right side of the Klipat Noga. The left side of the Klipat Noga, right? It comes from the big personalities, the Pope, the Puffy, the Kanyes, etc. So if you understand that the Klipat Noga, there's two sides of it, what do you do? If in the left side, just grab the people from the left side and then bring them to the right. That's why sometimes when Rabbi Mordechai said yes, he wants to bring light to California, to Hollywood, he understood what he said because he understood they are in the Klipat Noir. The fact that they are big personality, they have big nishamut. All you gotta do is just drag them to the right, and then that's it. You bring them into kedusha. Toda rabba.
Yes, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Anybody else want to add anything to any things that were said? Any reflections? Any thoughts?
Baruch Hashem, to what Rabbi Zohar was saying, it made me think about like when we wash our hands, how we declare with the right to the left, so the right is over the left, like bringing that to the right side, bringing that to the side of holiness, to Kedusha. That's what it made me think about. In this year, like, and Rob Mordecai, you've heard me say this. I'm so thankful for the Yesahara because without the Yesahara, we don't find that limit, that motivation in a sense. Like the Yesahara is like a sparring partner. You know what I mean? It's sharpening you, it's getting you stronger. All the challenges that you face from Hashem are meant to build you up. They're meant to elevate you to another level. You have to when you go to the gym, those weights you put on, that resistance is what you need. The Yesahara is that. It gives you that necessary resistance so you can build up your spiritual muscles per se, and you can get into the habit of always overcoming. So Yesahara is necessary. I don't think it's something that obviously, it should be nullified and void, but it happens through your good deeds. It happens through your avodas to Hashem. So the Yesahara is something that is necessary to bring us to that level that we're trying to get to.
1,000,000,000%. And not only that, too, to go further, when you become to be a tikkun, the Yetzirah become your best friend. Then he gives you all the keys to open all the doors that you need to attain all your potential. Where did you learn that? Yaakov, when he met Samek Mem. When he met Samek Mem, he changed his name from Yaakov to Israel. You see, that was the Yetzirah there. So when you doing all your tikkun, when you, for example, overcoming all the challenges you bring before you, because the Yetzirah has his job. What is his job? His job is to make sure you're not tempted. His job is to make sure that you build up strong, your muscles get stronger. And after that, when you become this bodybuilder spiritually, then he gives you the key. He gives you the key to everywhere you go. He become your best friend.
Shkoch.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Rabbi Zakaria, you there? You got any words for us? Maybe he's. Anyways, so yeah, so I think this is a good look. So this will definitely be a daily share. We'll give around this time. And the idea around it is just to really, the thing I love about Chassidut, I'm not saying Chassidut is the full solution, right? What Chief Rabbi Pinchas is teaching with Nusak Afriki and bringing all these tools together is ultimately the destination. But as we build to that destination, we're picking up different lights. And so that's why we learn the Shulchan Aruch. We're learning, like Rabbi Zohar, this is the first time he's with us, but Yeshiva Sanhedrin, like we're learning basically how to learn completely, right? So we learn everywhere from halakhic responses on different topics. We prepare for every holiday through the Shulchan Aruch. We have classes in Introduction to the Zohar, Introduction to Kabbalah. We have weekly Torah portions we learn by Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs and Blessed Memory. We learn Rabbi Ashlag. We're learning Rav Hall. We're learning just tons of Rabbanim, and we have different inspirational points. So this aspect of the Tanya is something that is really important to the yeshiva, because it's the Tanya is completely about the neshama, and it's working on that aspect alone, right? It's like, and that's why when people want to make one thing their whole thing, I get it, and I get all that, and I'm not taking away from that. If it works for you, it works for you, because every soul needs something. But here, we're learning everything, and our whole purpose is to learn for the sake of improving the world, right? So everyone here, the whole focus is to say, hey, we're learning for the sake of, okay, how do I improve my neighborhood, right? How do I improve, obviously the family, obviously myself, but how do I make changes in the world? So right now, the world's going through a transition. So we're focused on the neshama. And we want to learn all the thousands of years about the neshama and the different dynamics of the neshama and how it functions and this and how it interacts with creation and nature and all that. Because when we walk outside, we should see a soul. We can't wait for everyone else to get there, right? And it may take time. But there's a famous Rabbi Nachman, and we read this Rabbi Nachman about, the master of prayer, right? It's a story. It's a Rabbi Nachman story. And he talks about this guy who was a master of prayer, and he went different places, and he talked to people about God and this, and all of a sudden they just wanted to daven. They just wanted to serve Hashem, right? So like we're in that frame of the master of prayer of, we want to learn, we want to bring people in that want to go out and change the world. That's the focus. It's not, it's not the same avoda of other, yeshivot in that way. And this is not, obviously we have the chief rabbinate of Africa, and we're dealing with the African American community. We're dealing with other things, but I'm saying as a yeshiva, right? As a yeshiva, the focus here is to bring people in and teach them how to go and change the world, right? And so the teachings that we bring and the sharing that we're bringing are really there to change it, because everyone in these classes that I'm working with, they are all future rabbis and rebbitzins, and they have to go out and impact their community, and they have to elevate their community and even further. Like I haven't started talking about it, but I have a few people in Texas, right? They're here in Texas. They're in this group right now, but I'm already thinking about them. Like, you know what? Why not run for city council? Why not get involved? Because that's what we need. We need people to run for city council. We need people to run for mayor. We need to get involved. We need to elevate. We need influence, And so, so we haven't got there yet. I know I just dropped a bomb on them, but the point is just saying, like, these types of things of being involved in communities and building the network and helping the Rabbinut of Africa and helping all the efforts that we're doing through the yeshiva, right, is the main objective. And so here we're just building leaders, and we're just focused on creating solutions for the world, right, and improving the world. And so obviously North America is a big point. Rabbi Zohar, he lives in Virginia, so he's not so far away from some of the people in this year. But that's the point. Rabbi Zakaria, you there? You here with us? You there? We're on mute. What's going on? You there? All right. Anyways, so we'll end this year here. We're in the class here, but we're gonna be back tomorrow, obviously, pretty much around the same time, and we're just gonna continue on. We're continuing on, and the more we know about our souls, the more we can see other people as our souls, and then from the soul concept, we can start feeding their souls, right? Like with the people we see when we do an act of hesed, when we smile at somebody, we don't just see it as, oh, I'm smiling, I'm such a great person. But we're looking at it is that we create an opening for their neshama to receive light, right? When we do mitzvot in our house, with our family and Shabbat, these different things, where we can start feeding our community, right? Because you've identified them as souls. So if they're souls, they need light. So if they don't have the technology to bring the light in the world, that means you're the technology, right? You're the plug, right? And so from that place, that you being the plug, then we have this responsibility to serve them through our behavior and our conduct, because you're the source of light for that environment. And so that's the revolution for us, especially as, African Americans, as Black people, as Africans. We are the solution. We have the kalim to feed all of humanity, and we have to ignite it. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam.